is up, everyone? And welcome to your favorite Average to Good podcast. Call it what you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Tony Miola and Brian McBride. And we are buzzing because the boys are up 4-1 against New Zealand. That goal difference, very important. And we want to give a shout out to everybody on YouTube. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. That's first and foremost. Second, as a reminder, we didn't tell you this the last time around, but we're also going to go live on the Golazo Network. So we might have a couple weird bumps along the way as we kind of reset for TV. But you guys are cool. We have the best community on the YouTube, so we really appreciate you guys for that. But let's get some thoughts. 4 goals. Brian McBride, coming to you first, resident number 9. How you feeling about our attacking prowess?
I thought it was composed. I thought our intensity when we came out right out of the gate was good. I thought defensively we looked a little bit more solid than the attacking side of it. Once you get that first goal, things change and we get more opportunities. I thought the subs that came in too had a great impact, especially going forward. So all in all really good. And that one-handed save from Patrick Schulte at 2-0 is huge to keep that going.
Yeah, let's talk about Patrick Schulte. What do you think of his performance, our resident goalkeeper, Tony Miola?
Yeah, first off, good to see you guys. Great result for Marco and the boys here. I thought it was, for him, a great performance with regards to sometimes you don't have a lot to do, but you have a big impact on the game. And for goalkeepers, oftentimes that's a really difficult position to be in, right? Because you're not busy. You're not seeing the ball a lot, and all of a sudden you got to make a play. And as Brian mentioned, it was at 2-0. So you go 2-1 at that moment, and the face of the game, the complexion of the game, the nerves get rattled a little bit. Instead, about 8 minutes later on, you go up 3-0, and it's kind of done and dusted, right? And you're feeling confident. So good on the boys. A good result, a good attitude coming out right from the start. And it was a New Zealand side. I'm sorry, that just looked like they got run over by this U.S. team.
Yeah, they looked a little tired, frankly, but I honestly believe that it's because of the prowess, I'm using that word again, of the U.S. to play on the front foot, to get after it. I really thought we were the ones that were trying to drive the game right from the get-go, and I liked that response, and we needed it. I think there was some urgency in our game with regard to, hey, we gave up 3 goals. We have to make up this goal difference. So, yeah, a 1-0 win, we'll take it, but it would be a lot better and a lot cooler if we scored a whole bunch of goals and we were up 3-0 at half. And so I really appreciated that approach by Marko Mitrovic. Were you surprised, Brian, with regard to the starting 11 being exactly the same as the game before?
Yeah, I was a little bit. I thought you've seen the players come in the second half. I thought if anybody needed refreshing, if there was some tired legs or a little niggle, I wouldn't have been surprised at all to see a change in the lineup.
Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite Average to Good podcast. Call it what you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Brian McBride and Tony Miola, and we are thrilled to be talking about a big win by our Olympic team in the second game of the group stages against New Zealand. We won 4-1. The game is officially done. It is final, and that puts us our goal difference at +0. So we're excited about that. We lost 3-0 to France. We got the 4-1 win here. Could have been more, frankly. I wish it would have been more because that could help us when we want to get into the knockout rounds. The first time we would get into the knockout rounds in the Olympics since 2000. But I think we're in a good position right now. We'll obviously preview the Guinea game a little bit later in the show. But let's talk about this performance. Big Tones, I'm coming to you first. 4-1, feeling good. Are you excited about it like I am? You got to be good.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Look, this team had their backs up against the wall. They lose 3-0 on match day 1 in this group, and I'm not sure it was a 3-0 game when it was all said and done. There were some moments there where they had opportunities, but credit to Marko Mitrovic, like you said, the same lineup that comes out for this game. A little bit surprised by that, but it worked in the end. They pressured high up the field early. They had energy in the match. They closed passing lanes. They picked balls off. I go back to, what was it, second goal where Tolkin steals the ball and runs down the heart of the defense, ends up at the back post, and we score. There was just a lot of there was a different feel about this game. And no doubt they treated New Zealand differently from a pressure standpoint than they did France, and I'm not so surprised about that. But they needed they needed this, obviously, to continue to move on in this thing and give themselves a chance on match day 3. Yeah, we could have used a couple more goals, there's no doubt. But remember, we came into this thing 3 goals down. It's the first time we've ever scored on the men's side 3 goals in the first half of a game. It's the first time we've ever scored 4 goals in the Olympics in the game. So credit to these guys, right? They pulled that goal differential to 0 now, and they live to see another day and figure out what they do in the next match. And as you mentioned, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, I also want to get into individual players as well, and we'll do that probably a little bit farther in the show. We give our ratings, is like what we like to do. But Brian, I want to talk about Nathan Harriel because he ended up in a good position off of a set piece that led to him drawing the penalty, which Georgi Mihailovic finished. You were very excited about how he performed in game 1. I thought he was a little nervous to start that game, but grew into the game, and I thought he was excellent by the end of it. And he picked up right where he left off. I thought he was very good. I thought John Tolkin on the other side was very good as well. And I'll say this for everybody watching. If we have 2 aggressive outside backs in Tolkin and Harriel that can get forward and also track back and defend, why wouldn't we continue to play as high as possible, even if we're taking on the big teams like a France? Because I thought they were excellent on both sides of the ball today.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that the difference you get with Harriel is he has a presence in the box and on set pieces. He's really good in the air. He's also, for being an outside back, he's also a player that has a knack for getting on the end of balls. And, you talked about drawing the first penalty on Walker Zimmerman's goal. He's the one that was able to get a toe to it and almost slide it past the keeper. Their keeper made a good save on it, and then Walker was able to pounce. So having outside backs that can make a difference like that, I thought John Tolkin was awesome all game long. He was so positive. Every touch seemed to go forward. He engaged defenders, but also went past defenders. And it was just a totally different game for him. I thought he caused a lot of problems. He had some great service from the wing. So credit to those guys coming in, making a big difference, and putting us on the front foot from the very beginning.
Yeah, I was really impressed with just our overall, I guess, standard that we went out there and really tried to set the tone. And not that I'm surprised. We obviously have the players to do it, but I really like that. And I guess the big question for me, or the big conversation piece I want to have, and Tony, I'll throw this to you, and it's kind of piggybacking on what I just asked Brian as well. I would love for us to play that same way against the France. And I know there are going to be people that are like, oh, well, then we're going to get beat 5-0, get killed in transition. Okay, but at least we would try to know, and we could put them on their back foot and make them suffer a little bit. And I don't think we made France suffer a lot in their game. And I use that as a reference because if we're going to win a medal in this competition, we're going to have to beat somebody of consequence like a France along the way. And we did it after we gave up a goal in that first game. We finally decided we're going to go play. And I wish we would do that from the very beginning like we did against New Zealand. Now, I think we'll do the same against Guinea. It makes sense for us to do that, where I could build that momentum and confidence. But at times I feel like maybe we're a little bit too timid against the bigger teams. Where are you on that?
Yeah, I thought I'm with you. We did it coming out in the second half against France, but I can completely understand the first half of that game and maybe being a little bit more conservative. You're playing arguably the team that's the best team in the tournament, right? So you look at it and you go, okay, I don't want to be out of this game and by the first half. Keep in mind, when we came out at 1-0, we had some opportunities to make it 1-1, and then before you know it, we give up a really odd goal, bad defending, and now you're down 2-0. So it's fine margins, right, in all of these games because it was working for a while. But I'm with you. This team is more attractive when they play this way. They're more fun to watch. There's no doubt about it. It looks like it suits them better to play this way with the players that they have. And I would imagine we're going to see some changes in the personnel, I think, in game 3, but I don't think we're going to see a change in the way Marco and this group addresses the game at all.
Wow, you think we'll see some changes in game 3? That's a big question.
Like
Busio's hurt, right?
That's going to be a natural one. Griffin Yao was pretty good today. Maguire's the one guy we haven't really engaged in this game. Paredes, for me, today was spending more time with the antics of the game than he was trying to take on what was his name? The kid.
That's part of his charm. Tones.
I know, but
he's
good
at drawing
effective.
fouls. It led to one of the goals, right? He drew a foul on the sideline, and that led to Walker Zimmerman's goal. But but he's got, I said this in the last show, you weren't on this one, but he's got a Christian Pulisic-like ability of drawing fouls, which does have its
Jimmy.
value.
I heard it. I was watching. I
That's
heard
true.
you.
I forgot you were at the airport listening to us. I appreciate that. But Brian, let's talk about Duncan McGuire, because there were some moments, and I don't know, I had it written down like 52nd minute. He gets a ball inside the box, and he just got so easily dispossessed that I thought, dude, this is like the one moment where we finally get a grip of the game again in the second half, because New Zealand obviously was going to come out at halftime and in the second half and push the game a little bit and try to get back into it. And we needed him to hold up that ball, and it was just so not casual, but it's just too easy for me. And I wonder, because when you see a Griffin Yao or somebody else come on and they have that burst of energy, that is that the way forward, or do we try to figure out a way to have somewhat of a false nine and Paxton can float different areas? What were your thoughts on Duncan?
Yeah, well, we saw a bit of that on the end of the second half, didn't we? And the interchange was really interesting to see. And that part, I agree with you. I think the one thing that Duncan McGuire gives is sort of that physical presence, but we haven't been playing balls long. So you can understand, or playing balls directly up to him. So you can understand a change. And what you get with Yao is, like I said, that interchange between Paxton and him, but he'll run in behind, and he's got the pace to cause some problems for the defense. Not saying Duncan McGuire won't. He likes to do it. It's just he's not as pacey, so it's sometimes not as beneficial. But yeah, I agree with you, Jimmy. I think there's going to be a couple changes. One, of course, you're definitely going to leave Busio out. Hopefully he'll,
yeah, it didn't look good.
Well enough. Yeah, and anytime
non-contact hamstring pull, not good.
Holds their hamstring. So, other than that, I thought the two center backs were great again. They didn't seem bothered at all against a team that said, you know what, we're going to try and go direct. When they stopped being able to win any of those balls and they came right back at them, it just helped us with our press. We could step higher. So I'm excited about the interchange and that possibility of Yao working with, and I'll add in there's some good interchange between not only those two, but even when Taylor Booth came in, all that stuff is because they know each other and they played together in different youth national teams. It's really beneficial for us moving forward in this tournament.
Well, as a reminder about Griffin Yao, we played against Guinea in a friendly a couple months ago, and Griffin Yao had 3 assists. So I don't know, maybe roll him back out again and see if he can match the same. But I guess something else we'd have to take into consideration, and Tones, maybe this is where I will agree with you that there will be some changes. I don't know how significant, maybe 3 or 4 guys, is the fact that this will be our 3rd game in 6 days. And at some point, if you want to make a run in this competition or any competition, you have to trust the guys that are on your bench to come in and contribute as well. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Marko Mitrovic does. But obviously, this is a fantastic result for us to build on. And just to remind everybody, New Zealand beat Guinea 2-1 in the opening game. That one was pretty back and forth. Guinea had a goal or 2 called back in that one. So they were threatening that New Zealand defense. And based on what I saw from the Kiwis today, you should be threatening that defense every single time you get the ball. They were not that great going forward. Were there any other areas, Tones, that you were really impressed with? I know we'll get into individual players, but any lines of the field that you were excited about?
Yeah, I was really impressed with Tanner Tessmann today in the midfield. By the way, he's a lot bigger than I remember him being. I don't know if you noticed that. He just looks like he's grown. He's got his man body now. Like he's kind of a stand-up midfielder, right? He doesn't look rushed. He doesn't look pressed at all when he plays. And I'm really digging the way that he's gone about the first 2 games so far. But for me, defensively, if you're asking me for one line, I think defensively across the board, I wrote my scores down right after the game, and we'll get to them later. And they all got the same score because I thought they all did. They all did their job incredibly today, and that's that in the end. As much as we're gonna have to press, you talk about press. If you're gonna press like that, your center backs have to be good. They got to deal with balls in behind. Wing backs have to. But so if you're asking me for one line, I think defensively is the one of the 3 lines that I was most encouraged about.
Okay, and Brian, same question to you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the biggest and the most obvious thing was when our press was broken or when they were able to get through that initial press, how quickly we got back and how narrow we were. Like Marko Mitrovic said, hey, you want to play wide? Go right ahead. We'll send out, Aronson. We'll send out Paredes to put pressure on it, but you're not going to pass through us. And I agree with Tony exactly. I thought Tessmann this time, not only was he winning balls, but then he was connecting that next ball. And that was the part that sort of changed everything for us in the first half, in my opinion, because the difference we had in France is we would lose that after winning a ball, we would lose it right away. And they were able to continue just to high press us. The composure that our midfield had, and I thought to Tessmann's quality, using his not only his body and shielding balls, but winning balls and connecting that next pass to allow us to release pressure was impressive.
All right, let's talk quickly then before we get to our first break about Georgi Mihailovic. He's one of the overage players, scored the penalty, but I still thought kind of quiet, all things considered, and we're seeing more impact, I would say, from other players. Now, I don't want to take anything away from him. He could be that connective tissue that's, the pass before the pass before the pass that's unlocking that pressure. But I can't even really remember too many instances where that happened. Tones, what are your thoughts on Mihailovic?
Yeah, we talked about just before we came on, right? A goal and an assist, and for me, really wasn't all that involved in the match. Now, the easy things he makes look easy, right? He connects passes, and he doesn't lose a lot of balls when passes that you should make. He just doesn't seem dangerous enough in that area of the field, and maybe New Zealand sat back a little bit, but at some point that player needs to have an impact in the game. Now, we could make the argument, right? The subs that come on, it's because everyone's a little tired. Georgie's done some work, or Duncan Maguire even's done some work. So the next guy that comes on looks fresh and different ideas. But I would like to see a little more out of Georgie. I thought the first game he struggled against France. We could make an argument to, that's the best team in the tournament, but that's what you hear. You're one of the overage players. But again,
expectations are higher, right? If you're an overage, the expectations have to be higher.
No doubt. We say that with a goal and an assist in the bag. So I guess that's a pretty good argument to have, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna talk about a player not doing well or not being that involved in having a goal and an assist.
Yeah, that must be nice. Thoughts on Mihailovic, Brian McBride?
Yeah, and I'm hoping it's just more of the lack of understanding between each player. And we talked about the connectivity of the guys that have played together for so long, and maybe that's it. I know Georgie's also asked to do a lot of work defensively, and he seems to be in the right spots defensively every time, which as a player that's not
looks like Brian
him on the back. But I'm going to tell you that I think, to Tony's point, he does need to do more offensively. He has to have more impact in that final third.
All right, we're going to take our first break of Call It What You Want. When we come back, more of the good stuff. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back in to Call What You Want, your favorite Average to Good podcast. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Tony Miola and Brian McBride. And we're talking about the U.S.'s big 4-1 win over New Zealand in the second game of the group stage in the Olympics. Our biggest win, or most goals we've ever scored in an Olympic game. So we'll take that. I don't know if it's the biggest win of all time. Maybe. We'll have somebody check that for sure. But let's get into the match stats first and foremost. Possession, about even. We have actually they have New Zealand 52% to our 48%. That feels a little misleading, I would say. Shots 19 for us, 9 for them. Shots on target 7 for us, 4 for them. Fouls even. Corners we have 6-2. We basically actually where it mattered most was the score. We had 4 goals. They only had 1. I'm still a little bit disappointed about that goal. We'll get into that in a little bit. But let's do our player ratings. And Big Tones, I'm coming to you first. You get to rate the goalkeeper and the defenders from 1 to 10. What are you saying? What are your ratings? Hit us up.
I'm going to make it real simple for you. I gave Patrick I gave Patrick Schulte an 8
Okay.
in this match. Not only because of the save, but even from a distribution standpoint. But for me, the save is the timing of the save is the most important part of the game from a goalkeeper standpoint. And all the defenders got 7.5s in this match for different reasons. Okay. I thought Tolkin and Harriel were really effective. We talked a little bit about it both with the ball and against the ball. And I thought Walker and Miles once again had really good games. Of course, Walker gets a goal. So he's dangerous, and he's been dangerous his entire career on restarts. But 7.5s across the board.
Okay, now were you?
Hey, hold on, Jimmy.
Go ahead.
Definitely the goalkeeper union there. I mean,
not at all, man.
Goalkeeper gets an 8. Come on.
Look, I told you guys all the time. I tell you all the time. For me, it's not the number of saves you make. It's not if you gave up 3 goals in one game. It's about making important saves when you need to. That's how I judge goalkeepers. I've done that my entire career. That's how I judge them all the time. Making saves when they count. If you're down 3-0, 4-0, and you're making, save after save after save, that for me it doesn't matter. For me, it's the moment that you make a save, and that's an important moment. You go down, you make it 2-1 at that point. The game looks different for me. So yeah, I'm gonna absolutely stick. There's no one's gonna change my mind about that one.
So it's funny that you valued Walker. Doesn't he get a boost for the goal? Like, doesn't he? Is there no?
Yeah, I did. He was a 7 until the goal, and he gave a 7.5. There's the center back union talking.
I'm just saying, like, if I had played next to Miles and we basically had the same performance defensively, but I also chipped in with a goal, I'd be like, yo, what's up? Like, I don't really understand how that's really possible.
So let me hear how different you guys your ratings.
No,
are.
Go
ahead. Let me hear.
I think John Tolkin gets an 8 for sure.
Okay.
I thought he was...
So a 0.5 more than I gave him. That's so much different.
So wait, so Tones, tell me this: were you clamoring for Gaga Slonina to start this game after what we saw from Patrick Schulte in game 1?
I was. I don't want to say because of the poor performance. I still think Gaga Slonina is going to play a role at some point moving forward for this national team. I think Schulte starts here because he's in season and Gaga is not. I think Gaga moving forward is our goalkeeper. If it doesn't happen in this tournament, it's going to happen in a tournament real soon.
Okay. Just to remind everybody, why do you value Gaga Slonina so much? Like, what does he bring to the table that you really appreciate?
Number one, I think he's the best shot stopper we have, and that's what I look at first: is can you keep the ball in net? And I rewind back to France game, and there's 2 moments where I think his length and his ability to get side to side, maybe we have a different outcome on the first 2 goals, right? So that's his strength. His weakness had always been playing with his feet, but I saw him improve over a year and a half in Chicago where it didn't become a detriment to the game. Keep in mind, he also is a guy that makes it really, really simple with his feet. He doesn't try and do anything that he doesn't have to. He's not trying to make the game as a goalkeeper. He makes it really simple. And that part's only going to get better the more he gets comfortable. But for me, I think he's the best shot stopper we have, period.
Okay. Just want to make sure everybody understands where you're coming from with regard to that. And I'm very excited to see Gaga continue to get better and better and better as the years go by, because I do think he's going to be impactful for us as well. I'm going to go midfield. Brian, then you're going to have the front 3. So I have Mihailovic, and I have Tanner Tessmann and Busio. I think Busio was to some comments that are happening on the YouTubes that Busio was on his way to becoming man of the match had he stayed in the game. I thought his goal was really well taken. First one got deflected, and then he comes with the super toe poke. And then, Brian, I want to hear your thoughts on, and Tony, you too, on how difficult it is for a defender or a goalkeeper to defend a super toe poke, because the windup isn't as big, right? You can't really anticipate it. You can just get in there and toe bash it, and all of a sudden it finds its way in the back of the net. And so shout out to Busio for thinking about that and that split second, and a really well taken goal there, I thought, and good awareness. Unfortunately, he's out with a hamstring, so I'm going to rule him out. But up until that point, I'm going to just borrow Tony's ratings and say 7.5. No, you know what? I'll bump it up to 8 because he did score a goal. So I'll give him an 8 for that performance. I thought Tessmann was very good too. 7.5 is nice number that's now settled in my head. Thanks for that, Big Tones. And then Mihailovic, he did have a goal and an assist. One was a penalty. That was the first goal of the game. It was an important goal for us to set the tone and really kind of reward us for our endeavor and playing on the front foot to start the first half. And then he got an assist for the second goal that Zimmerman scored. I don't know if we can really give him an assist for that. He played the ball in a dangerous area, but I think it hit about 15 people before it fell to Zimmerman. So that felt like a gratuitous assist, but whatever. An assist is an assist, an assist. They want to give it to you, you'll take it. But overall, I would say that I still want more. Despite that goal and an assist, which sounds crazy to say, I want more from Georgi Mihailovic. He's one of our overage players. I want him to drive the game and be more impactful. So I'm going to give him a 7 because my standards are a little bit higher for him because of that. Is that harsh? Yeah, I don't care. You come at me in the comments if you want. Yeah. So and then with the players, I thought Jack McGlynn came in and he's so good at passing the ball. And I know that the knock on him is that he's not as mobile as some of the other players. But when you're smart and put yourself in good positions like he had been, and when he came on against France, I thought you could see what he could provide. And then obviously had a little bit more time and space today. And I thought he was picking apart some of the New Zealand defenders with his passing. And I really like his game. He's another one that's good on set pieces. He hit the one off the crossbar in the second half. Just got a really tasty left foot, and I was excited to see how he performed as well. I'd give him a 7. I thought he was solid, and it's tough to come in those moments. So I want to give him a little bit of love for that as well. So those are my ratings. I don't know if you guys want to chime in on those, but Brian, take it away. What's the front three looking like?
Yeah, I'll just take off the Jack McGlynn thing and run with it with Paxton Aronson, because they've played together for so long, growing up through the academy at Philadelphia, and they have that understanding. We talked a little bit about it before with him and Yao also having this connectivity and understanding of movement, and I think that all plays into our benefit. I thought Paxton was excellent today. I thought he was a continued worker. Made some great runs off the ball, got in some really good positions. I thought he took his goal really well. When we saw eventually Busio's goal, when the ball came across to Paredes took a heavy touch, waited too long, couldn't get his shot off, and thankfully it came to Busio, and of course he had 2 shots at the cherry too, and that went in. But Paxton, in a tight space, kills the ball dead and hits it so quick. And yeah, it gets a bit fortunate, it goes through the defender's legs, but I think he's trying to do that. And so I give Paxton an 8 for sure. When I look at Duncan McGuire, and of course again, most of his work was off the ball. Most of it was defensively, trying to make sure that he worked for the team. He wasn't very effective throughout the whole time he was on the field. So I'd give him a 6.5 just for his work rate. And then Kevin Paredes is an interesting one to me, because he gets himself in great spots. He's a bit of a pest to the defender, little niggly things, and sometimes I feel he goes down too easy and could sort of fight through some of those little battles. But having said that, still effective. I thought him and Nathan Harriel worked really well on that wing together. So I'll give him a 7 for that reason.
All right, so let's talk man of the match. I feel like there might be a couple options here, especially with Busio getting hurt. He feels like he's out of the conversation. Big Tones, I'll come to you. Who stood out for you as your man of the match?
Yeah, well, I'm with Brian. I gave Paxton Aronson an 8. The only difference I had from you, Jimmy, I gave Georgi Mihailovic a 6.5.
Ooh, you're even harsher than I am.
Yeah, and I gave Paredes a 6.5 as well. I wasn't enamored with his game today, but for me, Paxton Aronson And Brian, I'm glad you brought up the Duncan McGuire thing, because of course we're going to look at it as not scoring goals, but that kid works hard, man. He puts a lot of effort into the game. So if you're not better than any of us would know, some days when you're not getting it on the attacking side, you got to do it on the other side. You can't just forget about that part, right? So credit to him for continuing to go. But that's I'm Paxton Aronson to your question, Jimmy.
All right, I'm going to go John Tolkin.
Aw.
And if you watch the game, then it was very clear his involvement. And I actually want to tie Paxton Aronson into that, because I thought the camaraderie of them on the left side, Tolkin and Paxton Aronson right in front of him, was excellent. Did I take your pick? You can take the same one.
It's all right. It's all right. Yes, I had the same thought. I thought Tolkin was just a menace. And not only was he really effective going forward, he was good defensively too. Got in some tackles, won some balls in good spots. I thought his positioning was really good on crosses defensively. And how many times he was able to put New Zealand's defense on their heels was just really impressive for a wing back to do that, or an outside back. So yeah.
What I really love too is that he helped set the tone to start the game. He was the one that got that shot that got deflected. The goalkeeper had to parry it out for a corner. And I just thought, all right, like if John Tolkin's this far up the field trying to create shots and trying to create something positive on the attacking side of the ball, this is going to be a good day. And you need those little moments, whether they're goals or assists or not. It's just a sign, the signal of intent that you're going to go out there and kick somebody's ass. You got plenty of time for you, John Tolkin. Well played. Paxton Aronson, well played as well. The whole team had a good performance, all things considered. All right, we're going to take our next break and call it what you want. When we get back, we are going to talk about some drone stuff. Did you guys hear about this drone stuff? Anyway, don't go anywhere. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Call It What You Want, your favorite Average to Good podcast. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside two legends of the U.S. men's national team, Brian McBride and Tony Miola. And we're going to hit pause on the game of the U.S. U23s plus our overage players in the Olympics, winning 4-1 over New Zealand. Give ourselves a good chance to get a result against Guinea to get into the knockout rounds for the first time since 2000, which would be pretty rad if we can do that. And we're going to talk about this drone situation. So for everybody that is unaware, let me give you some context. There was a member of the staff of the Canadian women's national team that was caught flying a drone around New Zealand women's national team practice 2 days in a row. They got caught, they got identified, and now there has been some punishment. FIFA has come out and said that they're going to deduct Canada's women's national team 6 points at this Olympics. They won their first game against New Zealand, and now this puts them in a hole. Now there's 2 third-place teams that advance into the knockout rounds on the women's side. They still have an outside chance, but we'll see. They also banned Bev Priestman, the coach, for a year, so she's probably going to get fired, and the 2 coaches as well. Kevin Blue, who runs Canadian football, basically said he revealed there's years-long usage of drones by the men's and women's national team, so that is interesting. And John Herdman, who was in charge of both the women during some of the controversy and then also the men, is denied any involvement in this, which I don't really believe John Herdman, but I do want to hear. He said this John Herdman, I'll get to the quote. I'm highly confident that in my time as head coach at the Olympic Games or World Cup, we've never been involved in any of those activities. Keep that quote up because I think this is important. He doesn't talk about World Cup qualifying. He doesn't talk about Gold Cup. He's very specific, Brian McBride, with what he's naming here, which I probably agree with that statement. He didn't use it during the Olympics or the World Cup, but there was plenty of other times he could have used those drones to his personal benefits.
Well, you couldn't at this last World Cup. You couldn't. So you had to have your drone had to be registered, and you had your own little flying space, and that was it. So there's no way.
This is in Qatar. You're talking about.
This is in Qatar. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that was out, even if you wanted to do it. But when I want to say we were part of the Gold Cup, and we heard about something similar coming out when I think it was before Canada was going to play Honduras. A Honduran federation had complained to CONCACAF about a drone being flown over their practice, and we sort of all laughed because when we were going to play them in a friendly in the January camp, they actually had one of their staff members sit in the stands at IMG and try and watch our training. And we were like, what's going on here? So our security guard went over and cleared him. So I could see that there's some legs here with this.
So do you think this punishment fits the crime? Because this came pretty swiftly. Usually it feels like it takes FIFA quite some time. Tones, I'll throw to you. Like your thoughts on this and FIFA's quick retribution or punishment on this.
Yeah, I'm sure FIFA had some input right with the Olympic Committee, which probably acts a little bit quicker than everybody else does. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's known that you don't use a drone, right? And I was trying to think earlier today, like, what are the things that like you could find out? Because everyone thinks starting lineup. I think if you're on the other side of the coaching, side of things of the opponent, and you can't figure out basically who the starting lineup is, you're crazy. Like you shouldn't be in the job for me. Like you might get a change, here or there, but we've all done. Hell, we predict lineups. We're not even in camp with these people, so that part. But I'm thinking like restarts. Pressing, like you have a pretty massive advantage if the team is doing all that stuff while you're doing it. But just in general, it's from a sporting nature, it's just not right, period, and you should be punished.
I just don't get it. Like it's not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, right? It's not worth the risk. You're gonna potentially now look at this is gonna be what it feels like the tip of the iceberg for Canada right now and their organization up there. It's to you guys' point, okay, you're going to see some set pieces. Well, I'm pretty sure that if you just watch the last 3 games they played in, you get a pretty good idea of what their set pieces are going to be. Then, okay, how they like to play, same. You could go watch the video and have a pretty good idea of how that. I mean, I just don't understand where why it's be worth cheating to this level. Now, I don't know if we want to take it into baseball because as a Dodgers fan, I'm still bitter at the Houston Astros for sign stealing. And Bill Belichick and Deflategate and all the other.
Jim, we're still mad as Yankee fans, bro.
And listen, those are mechanical sports, right? So when they run plays, everything is very, I don't know, it's just different. There's more fluidity in
Here,
in this game.
let me tell you this about that part of cheating. I talked to a guy who's Major League Hall of Famer at his team, and I asked him about it, and he said to me, this guy's a 20-year career. He said, Tony, if I knew the signs, I did 150 points higher than I did, and this is a Hall of Famer. He's like, if I knew what was coming all the time, I would absolutely be better. So it is a little different, though, right? Because there's not as much coordination between 11 players. You know, you're looking at one singular thing, but in general, it's you're cheating the game.
Yeah. So there's another report too, Brian, just really quick, that 17 Canadian men's national team players were briefed on Honduras's footage that they got practicing. I mean, so what I think is interesting too, and I want you to answer this, but I do want to get into the conversation of, are they just going to punish the women's national team for Canada because the men are going to be hosting the World Cup in 26, and what would that look like? That's a bigger part of this, but yeah, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, the punishment side for the men, it's got to be pretty difficult because they didn't get caught red-handed, right? We're now getting stories about it. So can they still figure it out? I'm sure they could. And how much it really matters, to your guys' point, it just seems like they're taking a shortcut and they're not doing the video work and they're not looking at past games and understanding how, if they need to understand how a team presses or how a team's going to line up, if sometimes they move from a 4-3-3 to a 4-4-2. Those are all things that analysts look at, put together video, and a coach prepares a team in case they don't come out the same formation that you think they're going to come out with. Easy changes quickly on the field so you can recognize and have that in your back pocket rather than going to video and trusting that that's what it's going to be tomorrow, So am I interested to see if there's punishment to the men's side? Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see how far FIFA and CONCACAF's willing to go. Hopefully it doesn't affect Canada long term because we want to see a strong Canadian squad. We want to see that because it only makes us better in the U.S.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on this as well, is that when I had my opportunity to play in a World Cup, what I learned in that moment was it didn't matter where you played prior to that game, and it doesn't matter where you're going to play afterwards. And in my World Cup, I had only MLS experience, and so I do get a little triggered at times when MLS players get badmouthed as much as they do ultimately when they play for the national team. But what I learned was that that shit doesn't matter. What happens? It's like, are you ready when the whistle blows? So you can have all the information that you want, but are you going to execute on that information and in a way that's not just on an individual level, but a collective level? Sure, I can know what's coming. Like say we play Ghana in the World Cup. Okay, I'm familiar with their set pieces. I know what my guy likes to do that I'm marking. But if the service is good and the guy times his run, there's so many other these little factors that if you're not, all that information, it doesn't matter if you can't execute on that. And that's where I think is getting kind of lost in this part of the conversation. Yeah, okay, this is good. And does it give you those advantages? I will say this very quickly. When I'm thinking about Honduras, if Canada's filming Honduras, you might not have as much footage on those players individually. And you might not have as much footage on the smaller nations who maybe their games aren't on TV or are harder to find. I could see an advantage or gaining an advantage through a drone through that. But outside of like the big teams, I don't think it does anything. I think it's negligible. Big Tones, what do you say?
But I'm just thinking you're saying you don't have as much video on the small teams. Are you really worried about those small teams?
Oh, that's the thing, right? Exactly.
There's not a lot of video on.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? Like
Canada filming New Zealand women. Like, do they?
Yeah,
they should beat them. They're the reigning gold medalists. Like, I don't get it.
I don't get it, but to Brian's point about the men's side, that report I saw, right? There was 17 guys, right, that watched that video. You know that somebody that turned that report in is someone who has an axe to grind, or maybe was part of it and didn't get called. So I think it's going to be pretty easy in the end to find out who was in that room and ask questions. And should they be punished, the men's team? Yeah, if they did it, they should be punished. I mean, John Herdman, I saw his press conference today, the quote that you read. I watched it live, and he really deflected the question. He kept throwing it back to seeing his son play, right, who was on New Zealand today. Going to the Olympics, he's just come back and focus on the athletes. This is their moment. But yeah, this is when you got caught in the end, right? This is when Canada got caught. So, and to your earlier point about firing the manager, I think you have to, right? I don't know, Bri. You would think, right, that leading into the World Cup at this point, time-wise, and you're suspended for a year. Forget an integrity standpoint, right? You can't coach your team for a year. Like, what do? You got to make a change.
Yeah, that part's there, but I think the integrity is a bigger factor, because people will look at Canada differently if they don't take a step, because basically if they don't let her go, they're saying it's okay, we understand you made a mistake. You're not holding people accountable. And in this sport, you guys know, the only way you get reactions and you get trust is if people are held accountable.
Yeah, so Kevin Blue, who is running the Canadian Federation, during his press conference, exonerated Jesse Marsh because there was some talk about drone activity or using a drone at the Copa America that Canada was in. And the funny low-hanging fruit joke is, oh, well, no, of course Canada got to the semifinal of Copa America. They're spying on everybody, you know? So but Jesse apparently came out, or the story was, or here, I'll say it right there, that the quote just came up here from Kevin Blue. And he says, Jesse explained to me that he denounced it immediately and forcefully. This is on attempted drone usage at Copa America, and has communicated that to his staff, both the existing staff and staff that were from previous coaching staffs that are still with us. And I wonder, Jesse's got a unique take on this, because the coach that he replaced at Leeds, Marcelo Bielsa, who's now at Uruguay, he was also caught cheating and spying and watching other teams train. And so I'm pretty sure he's like, I don't want any part of that. I don't want to get tiptoe into those waters. But it's nice to see that Jesse's exonerated. Knowing what we know about him, I'd be really surprised if he ever tried to take this type of advantage. Brian, I'll come to you on this.
Yeah, I can't imagine, Jesse wanting any part of this. And it's so easy for us to sit here and say, gosh, no one would ever do something like this, right? Because it just seems like the benefit we talked about, not much benefit. The repercussions would be huge, which are showing to come true now. So Jesse's way too smart to do something like that, or even try and put that some sort of process in place.
But part of the challenge for Jesse, isn't it? Like, he's the guy that loves figuring out who the starting 11 is going to be, and what the opposition is going to do, and where they're going to press me, and now work against it. Can you imagine like taking a new job like that? And you go and they say, here's your computer. And they're like, that file over there in the top corner.
That's everything you need.
What does that say? It says that file says drone footage, like, what is drone footage? You click on, you got everybody, but yeah, I think, I wouldn't imagine Jesse would do it. I think for him, that's part of his challenge all the time. Like, that's part of the beauty of coaching for him.
Now, I wonder, he's got to deal with the smoke now. Whether he's involved or not, he's part of the Canadian Federation, part of the men's team, and there's probably going to be some fallout with the men's team, I'd assume. No, I expect it to be more John Herdman focused. It's going to be a distraction, and I just wonder how long it's going to be a distraction. And as we see more of the repercussions of this, I wonder how it's all going to go. Now, Marcelo Bielsa said when he got caught cheating that this was common in Argentina. This is what they do. And I've also heard from some friends that were in the Bundesliga that this is pretty common as well. And I had a friend tweet something out saying that most of the rest of the world is like, yeah, whatever, it's part of it. But only here in our bubbles are we making it a bigger deal. But maybe it's because we're so close to some of the cheating that's happening in other sports. There is that famous adage, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, right? So I don't know. I don't really know.
If you go to any club around, especially Europe, or in a top, they have a budget. They have, doesn't have to be even in the top division. You see every training ground has fences, and they have blackout fences that are put up, because it really is somewhat somewhat common to have, if it's not from someone's staff, it's a fan who knows a coach who knows a coach who knows and can get some information out. Like, you look at Schalke's training ground, and they've got they've got a hotel that looks over the training ground. They specifically don't allow people to stay in those rooms on specific days that face the training ground. So it is something that's there, but for sure, I don't think coaches or coaching staffs try and do that and take an action on purpose to do that. Fans love to do that.
All right. And then Tones, if somebody spied on us when we both played for Kansas City back in the day, I'd be like, wow, they must really be scared of us. They're going to this length to get inside information, which, everybody knows where I stand at this point, where you still got to go out there and perform. And if you're not going to do that, then all this information doesn't mean crap. But
they'd be like, why are the goalkeeper and that center back yelling at each other all the time? What are they doing?
Yeah, we got to exploit that relationship because they clearly don't like each other in some ways. All right, we're going to take one more break here of Call It What You Want. When we come back, we're going to get into our final thoughts for the Golasso Network. We're going to keep this thing going on YouTube, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back in to Call What You Want, your favorite Average Good podcast. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Tony Miola and Brian McBride, and we're going to leave everybody on the Golasso Network with this final question for our last segment, again, on the Golasso Network. We're going to keep this party going on the Golasso America YouTube channel. So keep those comments coming. But here's the big question for everybody. Based on what we saw today from our U23 team and our 3 overage players, can any of the players right now on this Olympic team, all right, let's just say, let's leave the overage players out of it. Any U23 players, do you think they can crack into our full team in the near future? Brian McBride, coming to you first. You're on the hot seat. Have you seen enough from any of our younger players to think, okay, maybe I'll give you a little bit longer than the near future, but do you think any of them can maybe crack into making our 26-man roster for 2026?
I still think we need to see a little bit more. But
give us the name. Give us the name.
Having looked at both these games and knowing these players from the U20s and so on, I do think Nathan Harriel has some option to be a part of the squad. Especially now since we've got some injuries there. And John Tolkin's impressed me. Now, granted, it's been 2 games, but I thought he's had 2 respectable games. I thought today was an excellent game from respectable against France. But after that, I don't see it being that anyone else is going to be pushing that. Now, Tony's come out and said Gaga for the future, and I could definitely see that for sure. And even knowing that Miles Robinson is a part of it and Walker was a part of it and could be, I still think that having center backs that are strong, that good leadership, and Miles Robinson has the pace that we need to make sure if we run up against pacey teams. So, if long story short, Jimmy, I'd say Nathan Harriel is probably the one that I can see breaking in.
You've been high on him since we started talking about him in particular. So, and I've been watching him more closely because of what you've been saying, and I thought he was very good today. And I also think, Tone, we need to think about where there could be a need for our full team, right? After Anthony Robinson, not really a left back option behind that. So maybe Tolkin can fit there. Nathan Harriel, obviously, still kind of feeling wide open. I don't think Scally's our answer at right back, even though he did impress me during Copa America, shutting down some top players. But going forward, maybe not as much of a threat. Then obviously with Tyler Adams being a glass house, we can't count on him being healthy. Is there room for a Tessmann to potentially get in there? And I know Gaga is your guy. So who do you think would be a good shot at maybe getting on 2026 roster?
Yeah, so you guys stole them all from me. Of course, Robinson, the 2 wingbacks, as you guys mentioned, Tanner Tessmann and the goalkeeper. I'm trying to think from an attacking standpoint, just to kind of change the rhythm a little bit. I still want to see more Paxton Aronson, but he has something about him that I like. Like there's an energy about him that I like. I still think he has to clean up his game a little bit, but he could be someone to watch for 26. It's going to be a long shot. But Tanner Tessmann is the other one out of the defenders that I just think based on that position, because if you think about it, even with Tyler there, I mean, are we going to lose Luca Della Torre at some time where he kind of phases out of the national team? And keep in mind, we're going to have a new manager that comes in, right? Sure. Whoever that's going to be, the first sort of real look that they're going to have at somebody outside of the pool is this Olympic team. And I would imagine that manager will think about, based on the friendlies that we have, bringing a couple of these guys in. So,
all right, Tones, I'm going to have to jump in here because we are done on the Golasso Network. Call It What You Want is done on that. We're going to keep the party going, though, on YouTube. And here's all the information that you need to know. We'll catch you guys on the Golasso Network very, very soon. Hey, welcome back to the YouTubes and Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Brian McBride and Tony Miola, and we cut off Tones mid-thought because we were having a nice conversation about which U23s could potentially crack into the roster for the World Cup in 2026. And you make a great point, Tones, and I want you to finish that, but it's about the new coach. The new coach is going to have different ideas and potentially a different formation that could suit some of these players in a way that we're not even thinking yet.
Yeah, and you would think that the fact that we made a change was because the group didn't get it done. I would think the new manager is going to quickly want to see as many faces and bodies as possible and get as much information as possible on all of these players. And you guys know the best way to do it is in camp with the big boys, right? It's hard sometimes to judge U23s against U23s. We get a feel, we get an idea, we get a sampling of what strengths and weaknesses might be, but how does that fit in a full team? Well, best way to do it is to bring them in, right? I don't think there'll be a ton, but I think there will certainly be some.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I look forward to when we name a coach. Apparently, sporting director Matt Crocker.
Different show,
says he's
Jimmy.
coming.
Different-
It is a
different show.
A different show. Ondus, and what's up, Ondus? And what's a shout out to everybody on the chat or in the chat that's having a good conversation there. Says, I think our midfield has a lot of questions. And when I saw that initially before it popped up on screen, yeah, I start to think about Weston McKennie's future and where is he going to go and is he going to play? I think he's been linked to Fiorentina at the moment, as has Tanner Tessmann. And then you have Yunus Musa, who hasn't settled in at Milan, I think, the way that they want, even though Pioli did trust him in some big games. And then you have Tyler Adams, who is hurt a lot. And we might not ever see the same version of Tyler Adams, which is really sad to think about. But I think there could be some room there. Brian, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's our deepest position right now. But yeah, I think there's always going to be the fact that there's players that are, younger players that are improving and playing at higher levels. They're going to get better. And so it's a matter of whether or not, the players that are in front of them continue to get better, which you hope to see. So the big question mark for me is, does the new coach change the formation? Mm-hmm. And if he does, that might provide opportunities just based on needs. Say we go a 3-5-2, you're going to have different needs, right? So I still think it's a big step for some of these players,
right?
But they're definitely, to Tone's point, there's definitely going to be opportunities where they get called in and be a part of the squad, because you're exactly right, Tony. You rarely do Olympic team players get bypassed before other players that haven't been in national team camps or youth national team camps, because of the fact that they've had a chance, the coaches had a chance to see them in the national team settings. And that, it's definitely different, to Jimmy's point, at different ages. But more often than not, you see the new players that are being pulled are coming from the Olympic team or the U20 team. And I mean, listen, you got a player who's 14 years old who's playing professional soccer, and you could see him making the jump and bypassing it in a few years. So it's interesting times ahead, that's for sure.
And it's exciting because we have so much talent, or it feels like we have more talent than ever to choose from. And I think that's be a good problem for the new coaching staff to have. All right, let's take a look forward and get into our preview against Guinea, our last group stage game. They are currently playing against France right now. It's 0-0 at the half. And they had a goal that they scored. It got called back, unfortunately. Well, actually, as Brian said in the chat, our private chat, that might not be good for us from a U.S. perspective. We kind of want France to win and run away with it. And then that gives us a better opportunity to do what we need to do against Guinea. But as I mentioned before, Guinea, we beat them in a friendly 3-0. Griffin Yao had 3 assists. And based on what I saw from Guinea against New Zealand, though they have some talent, it doesn't look like collectively they're going to be able to wear us down over 90 minutes. So I could see them scoring very similar to New Zealand, but if we play the way that we did today, I'm not that concerned, all things considered, but you still have to go out there and execute, as I've been mentioning in other ways. We saw a little bit of the matchups, but how are you expecting that game to play out? And would you make any changes to the starting 11? So Tones, I'm going to get a little bit more specific with you. Who would you like to see come in, and who would you start in that game?
Yeah, I think we do make some changes, or I expect some changes to be made. I'm looking from today. Obviously, Busio, it looks like he's going to be a change. Tolkin's a guy that can go forever. Harriel looks like he can go forever. I don't know that you make a change in the back four or goalkeeper at this point. If you were going to make a change at goalkeeper, I think you would have done it today rather than in the game that you need to qualify. George Mihailovic, I know he's one of your overage players. Maybe he gets a rest in this game for a little bit. And we see, a Taylor Booth, or we see maybe someone come centrally for him. And up top, Duncan McGuire's put in a lot of work with probably no reward for his work. If he is your starting forward, can you see him, getting a rest for a little bit, maybe coming on in the second half sometime? I could see that as well. Outside of that, I think, Paxton Aronson looks a guy that can run forever. Kevin Paredes, he's clearly in Marco's plans. He can run forever. So I see two or three changes in this lineup going forward. And
Okay.
we
Go
say
ahead.
not knowing if anybody, got banged up in this game, and
Right.
we think everybody's coming out of it healthy.
Yeah, I think McGlynn's going to be the obvious choice for Busio, Brian, and then I kind of with you. Why not sit Mihailovic just for a game? Let him. If he's one of the older guys, he needs a rest, because 3 games in 6 days is a lot. That needs to be taken into consideration. You could rest McGuire as well, and then you have some kind of. You could put Paxton Aronson in that midfield spot, maybe more as a number 10. And then you could have Yao and Paredes on one side, or Paredes can be one of them's going to be your false 9, and then you could have Taylor Booth come in as well. There are some interesting options that we have, and this is one of the challenges, I think, when you only have 16 field players to choose from. But yeah, I wouldn't mind resting potentially Duncan McGuire and Mihailovic. What do you say, Brian?
Yeah, and you could always bring CIWYW in and move.
That's
Paxton
true. I forgot. Yeah.
And
that's true.
That's an option there. He's an excellent player, and physically he adds a different dimension for us because he's a man. I mean, he's like Tessmann in the sense that people just bounce off of him. So yeah, I think CIWYW, I wouldn't mind seeing him come in, move Paxton centrally, or even if you drop him into the midfield where Mihailovic is playing, and you bring in Griffin Yao. So there's some different options. That's we talked on this podcast about, and Charlie always brought it up, didn't he, Jimmy, about the fact that you have a lot of similar style of player, but the negative of that is if you need someone to come on and change the game and provide something different, yeah, that's a negative. But a positive is you can put players in different positions and they can be effective. And so I think you have to look on the positive side for this one, because you can make a few different changes if needed.
All right, so let's talk about the potential crossover. I know I'm getting ahead of myself. It's part of my charm, everyone. Last question for the show, and we'll let everybody get on with their day. We appreciate your support as always. So we're going to cross over with Group B. And right now in Group B, after 2 games, every single one of those teams is on 3 points. So you have Argentina, who beat Iraq today 3-1. They're on top of the group with a +1 goal difference. Morocco ended up losing to Ukraine 2-1 today after beating Argentina 2-1 in the first one. So they're on 3 points. Ukraine's on 3 points. Iraq beat Ukraine in their first game. They're on the 3 points, but they have a -1 goal difference. Who do we not want to face? Because all these teams have shown moments where they're pretty good. I assume Argentina's the obvious choice. Morocco has Hakimi out there running. I was like, Hakimi's on Morocco? That feels a little unfair, but overage players. And Ukraine, Iraq, those are going to be tough opponents as well. And obviously they've demonstrated they can beat anybody. Is there any tones? I'll come to you. Is there any one team you think we should try to avoid at all costs?
Well, I think the obvious might be Argentina, but Morocco was the better team against Argentina for the majority of that.
Yeah.
I don't know, crazy match that, there were things that happened, in this beautiful game. We always think we've seen everything until you watch another game, right? And that was nuts. So, Morocco is certainly a team that can be dangerous. Argentina at the moment, there's just good vibes around the Argentinian Federation. They know how to win. They find ways to win. They find ways after losing to Morocco to sit top of the group right now, although everybody's tied. But you look at this, it's about as even a group as you can get. So I suppose in the end, it's Argentina just by name that I wouldn't want to face, but none of it's going to be easy.
Yeah, that's the beautiful part about knockout rounds. Brian, same? Are you on the same page with?
Yeah, and I'm on the same. And I think for me, it's more the mental side of it, right? So if this group had won their first game against France, I think the confidence level would have said, "Hey, bring on anybody." But the fact that you lost to a big name, And you could see they weren't near as sharp, and they weren't near as, and again, part of that because France was so good. I think just the name itself of Argentina, and when you look at their squad, it's a strong squad at the same time. So for me, yes, Argentina.
Yeah, what's interesting is Argentina might be who we're matched up against anyway, and Morocco, to your point, Tones, I thought we're really good, and their fan support in France as well is pretty off the charts. So
yeah.
It's gonna be difficult no matter what, right? If you're gonna win something of consequence, you got to beat the best to be the best. You guys know the adage. All right, that's it. I'm calling it a show. Call What You Want is done for today. Come back and join us after the next game, July 30th. Will be the next game against Guinea, all to play for in that one. Obviously, the result against France for them today will impact how we approach that, or how France approaches all their game. Whatever. It's going to be a big one. We got to win it, and that's what matters. So we can book our ticket to the knockout rounds for the first time since 2000 in the Olympics. And that's it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate your support, and we'll see you soon. Later.